Hello everyone. It's been a funny 12 months, right? um, yeah, today we're going to look at quite a lot of stuff. That's me, that's my face. So I'll jump through to the areas where I'm going to talk about iOS 15 and then actually not much time spent on macOS Monterey because almost all of it's covered by iOS 15, which I'll talk about a bit later as well. And then I thought I'd look at AirTags because that was one of the biggest kind of new things that's been released in a long time. So yes, iOS 15. So as always, the new version is out for developers to try, and there's public beta available now as well. So for the bold and the brave, you can you can try it out yourself if you feel up to it. Actually, as far as betas go, it's been really good. Not full of problems, not full of huge bugs or anything, which seems to be a good sign for things for the future. So I've been using it since it came out, and I think it's on the 4th release already, and it seems to be perfectly fine. I haven't had any apps crash or anything, which is what usually happens. So yeah, these are the main new features that we're going to talk about. The first one's focus, and then there's a new design to Safari, which has been a bit controversial. Then there's a whole load of new FaceTime features, but I'm just going to speak about them for the kind of main 2 or 3 which are interesting. And then there's live text, and I've forgotten the words there, but it's also visual lookup, which is really cool. And there's shared with you, which I'll talk about further. And then the thing that they kind of added on the end to the presentation and barely spoke about was iCloud Plus. But I think a lot of you probably find that quite interesting. So they haven't really given us much info really on that yet, but I'll share with you what I do know. So focus is replacing the do not disturb feature that you have on your iPhones and iPads. So currently with do not disturb, you can set your phone to behave differently when you're in a do not disturb mode. So for example, you can specify specific people that can still call you when your phone's on do not disturb. And over the years, Apple have added more and more features to that and made it so you can customize it quite a lot. So what they've done is they've gone a step further and made it so you can make multiple do not disturb modes, basically. And that just basically means that you can create these different modes that your phone and your iPad can be in for different times of the day. So you might, for example, have a sleep mode, the traditional do not disturb, where you just cancel all notifications and have nothing displayed. But then you might have a work mode where you want particular employees or colleagues to be able to call you or message you or whatever. So it means that you can really kind of dictate how your phone bothers you, because most people are bothered by the phone. I'm bothered by my phone most of the day, and I do my best to try and ignore as much as possible. But I'm flooded all day with notifications. So it is really cool to be able to kind of switch between the various modes. So by standard, I think you have the, let me move this that way. Yeah, you have do not disturb, work, personal, and sleep. But you can see there's a plus button there, and you can actually add as many focus modes as you want. So you can really drill down and kind of, for whatever kind of exotic lifestyle you lead, there's a focus mode that you can find for what you're after. So that's the first big feature, and that feature is both on iPhones and iPads, and also on macOS, and that's kind of going to be the same for nearly all of these features actually. So one of the other features of focus status, which is new, is you can actually enable it so when somebody messages you, as you can see in this image on the right, it will actually show them at the bottom that you've enabled a particular mode on your phone. So if your mode is like work mode, for example, then if somebody texts you, they'll get this little subtle notification at the bottom of their message saying that's the mode that you're in, and that might be why you're not responding straight away. That is optional, so you can turn that on and off based on per person in your contact, or you can turn it on and off globally for all messages. So that's just like another little thing which allows people to kind of leave you alone and not pester you if they see that you're in work mode or sleep mode or something like that. So Safari, yeah, so Safari had a massive redesign, completely rewritten from scratch. And the first 2 or 3 versions that were released since the developer conference were quite difficult to use. The main difference is that they've moved the search bar from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen. And of course, because we've had iPhones now for so long, most of us kind of use muscle memory to navigate interfaces like this. So even after using it for a month, I still find myself tapping at the top to type in an address, and it just doesn't seem to be sinking in. And on the first beta, what happened is when you tapped at the bottom to type in address, the box moved back up to the top of the screen, and you ended up doing this little tappy dance on your screen trying to figure out where on earth you're meant to be looking. And I think they got quite a lot of negative feedback, and very quickly the next beta release they changed it, so now it stays at the bottom permanently. They also got rid of the refresh and the share options and hid them behind, I think you can probably see on this screen, the 3 little dot symbol at the bottom. And that was a big no-no, and a lot of people complained about that too. And so now in the latest beta, which came out I think a couple of days ago, the refresh button and the share button have come back. So they're actually listening to people, which is, I mean, wonders never cease, but for the first time in a long time, they're taking feedback. The thing is, whenever you download a beta of anything at Apple, it always comes with a feedback tool, which is like a little app that comes with it. And that's how they figure out what needs to change and what needs to be fixed. And a lot of people like go online and complain about stuff, but they don't tend to actually use that tool to directly feedback. And Apple absolutely guarantee that every single bit of feedback is read. They don't respond, but they're all absolutely read and processed through their system. So all of those changes that they've done recently in the Safari browser is because of people's feedback using that feedback tool, not people moaning at the Genius Bar or anything like that, because that doesn't go anywhere. So the layout's changed. You also have the option to have grouped tabs, which is quite cool, and extensions have moved over. So yeah, so here's a bigger picture of the new search tab bar section. It's slightly different already in the new beta from this picture. So the 3 dot icon is gone, and that's just a share icon now. And where the padlock is now a refresh button. And basically, you can probably see to the left or right of the address bar, there's like another small kind of piece of an address bar, and you can swipe between your tabs across with your thumb rather than having to go into the all tab view and out and in and out and in and out. You can just swipe between them, which is quite cool. So they're basically trying to put everything within reach of your thumb, because as you probably know, the phones are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max is the biggest phone that they've ever had, and reaching to the top of the screen, it's a big it's a big stretch, and a lot of people can't make that repeatedly. So I get why they've done it, but of course, because it's such a big change, and there are a lot of people that don't handle change very well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
When you have it at the bottom, where does the keyboard go when it's blank and when you want to type something?
So let me have a look on mine. So it just pops up and pushes it up slightly. So it pushes the bar up about another inch or so higher, and the keyboard pops up and then slips back down again. So it's quite smooth, and I think it is better. I'm just so used to the old way after a million years of doing it the old way that my brain is not catching up with my fingers yet. But yeah, they say it's a better way of doing it because you actually have more screen available for the websites, and the websites now go like fully edge to edge, top to bottom. So once you're on a site and you start scrolling, the bar disappears and it's almost like you're in a proper full screen experience, which is nicer. It's definitely nicer. But yeah, they're trying to just make it a bit cleverer. But of course, when things are a bit more efficient, there's usually a learning curve involved. So that's the new search bar. Tab groups is cool. So tab groups, and this again is another feature that's across Mac and iOS, means that if you are regularly visiting a particular set of websites, so I, for example, running my business, I use lots of web apps, things for like accounting and social media and all this kind of stuff. So rather than having to either save them in the old Safari where you could drag bars across, that was the old way of doing it. Now you can actually save groups of tabs. So you can, with one click, open a whole group of tabs as a fresh browsing session, which is really cool. And they get synchronized across all of your devices with iCloud. So once you've set up these tabs, they're then available just in this list where you can see like the word inspiration. You can tap on there and it will just show you all of your different tab groups that you've made, just so you can really quickly get to all of those sites that you regularly visit. So you can have whatever you like, I guess, shopping, work, holidays, anything like that, really. So yeah, hopefully that'll save people some time. And extensions have finally made it to iOS. So last year we talked about Safari. Safari improved quite a lot last year, and it's changing again a lot this year. One of the things that they changed last year, which hasn't actually come into effect properly, is they rewrote how extensions work on Safari. And they've made it so it's almost zero effort required for an extension developer to copy across a Google Chrome extension. And so a lot of people use Google Chrome browser just because there are a lot more extensions available. And there are extensions to do all kinds of things. There are extensions to change how YouTube works. There are extensions to find money off websites and vouchers and all sorts of things like that. But until recently, the extensions had to be written specifically for Safari, and most developers just didn't bother writing them for every version of every browser. And because Chrome was the #1 browser in the world, almost all extensions are for Chrome. So now, I think once macOS Monterey is released, you're going to see a lot of Chrome extensions becoming available on Safari. And yeah, hopefully that will be a good thing for Safari. So because Safari is definitely safer and faster now than Chrome, but I think a lot of people have just got used to having all of those extra tools available in Chrome. So yes, those extensions will also come to the iOS and iPadOS. So you can see in this picture that I've got here, there's a few already added there. Grammarly is one of my favorite ones. I use that for everything. So Grammarly is a brilliant extension for basically correcting your grammar and your spelling, but it also tells you how readable your content is. So if you're writing content for a website or for a blog, Grammarly is essential. It's really good and it's free as well. And then Honey, the next one down, is an extension for finding coupons for websites. So rather than you trawling the web looking for a money off code, it will just tell you if there's one, and it will automatically add it to your cart if you're on a shopping website. And then there are other things like the Notebook Web Clipper. I don't know if any of you've used it before, but the Notebook app is really good. It's by Zoho, and the Notebook is just a much kind of nicer experience, I think, than Apple Notes, although I use both. So yeah, so the extensions will be available just the same way as they are on Safari. So you might have noticed already that in the Mac App Store, there's now a proper Safari extension section. Before, you had to kind of blindly search and try and stumble across them somehow, but they've, for some reason, I don't know why they didn't in the first place, made a category for Safari extensions. So they should be a lot easier to find, and there should be a lot more of them. So yeah, look for that flood when it's released. But yes, you'll also be able to choose specific extensions to work on specific websites, so you can dictate when an extension works and when it doesn't. And again, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that they will also synchronize between devices, the settings. So FaceTime's probably the one which has had the most attention this year, the app with the most kind of changes, um, I'm pretty convinced that they're in the process of doing what Steve Jobs promised, which was to make FaceTime and iMessage cross-platform. So at the moment, it's still Apple only, Apple devices only with a asterisk, which I'll talk about. But they said way back when it was first released that it was going to be available on Android too. And I think the last 2 or 3 years, there's been such a huge amount of negative press and coverage over all the messaging platforms and the Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and Telegram and all of the other alternatives, that I think actually Apple's probably trying to be a bit clever and waiting for a lot of the negative press around these platforms to subside. But it looks like they're definitely gearing up to launch it as a separate product that will be available across all platforms, which could only do great things for us really, because it means we won't have to keep using that awful WhatsApp, which is horrible. I mean, I hate it. It's a horrible app. It's ugly, it's slow, and it eats your battery like nothing else does. And it's just not that secure. So iMessage is definitely a much nicer experience, and FaceTime is a much nicer experience, but of course we're locked into only other Apple users until now, I guess, for this little bit that I'll talk about in a second. But the first new feature is SharePlay. So SharePlay allows you to make a FaceTime call to anyone else on FaceTime, and it will allow you to co-watch a movie at the same time. So you can fire up a Netflix film or something on Apple TV Plus and invite a friend to watch it with you, which is, it's pretty cool. I think a lot of services have their own versions, like Disney Plus, for example, has that option. But I think with Disney Plus, everyone who's watching also has to have an active subscription to that service to watch it at the same time. What I couldn't find out is if there are any kind of restrictions, or whether it's specific down to specific apps. So it's still pretty vague about how it will work and what apps it will work and won't work with. I'm sure Apple is probably going to give app developers the choice as to whether it's possible to share a thing or not. So who knows? It could end up being one of those features which just doesn't happen because so few of the developers will agree to let their content be shared with people that way. But I'm hoping that Apple will just be a bit more authoritarian and say this way or no way. But yeah, through the pandemic, it would have been nice to have that maybe a year or so ago when everyone was bored and at home. So yeah, you'll be able to basically live stream your content that you're kind of watching with your friends and family. So you'll be able to watch and share videos, and people can still use their phones at the same time because of picture-in-picture. It can be a small video, and you still have the FaceTime controls at the top there, and you can still be chatting and like texting people and things and all that kind of stuff for people that are very bored, obviously. You can also use it with Apple Music, so you can share music and listen to music with other people as well, which is quite cool. And it will always, even with the lag of the internet, it will always make sure you're listening to exactly the same part at the same time. So there won't be any kind of delays between what you're hearing and seeing and what the other end is hearing and seeing. And then screen sharing finally comes to the iPhone, which, as somebody who supports people remotely mostly at the moment, this will be very useful, because at the moment I pay for a tool which isn't very good and it times out every 10 minutes. So this will be really cool. I'll be able to FaceTime my clients and help them with their phones. And so you'll be able to share your screens with whoever you choose to share your screens with, and properly go through things on your phone and talk about stuff. Like in this scenario, someone's choosing a flat and then showing pictures and a map and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that one. So you also now have portrait mode, which I think Mike is showing off quite nicely on his iMac. So that was a new feature because of the specific technology of the M1 iMac that Mike's using, but that's also coming to iOS as well because of the true depth camera on the iPhones. So that will basically blur your background just so the video is kind of concentrating on your face and not what's going on behind you. Hopefully for most people. I think I would need a bigger blur than that for my messy room. So this one's really interesting, and this is what leads me to think that Apple is going down the cross-platform route, is that now they will enable you to create a FaceTime link, which is very similar to how Zoom works. So you'll be able to schedule a FaceTime call and invite people to it, or send them a link, which means even if they're using Windows or Android or any other platform, it will still work. They'll still be able to FaceTime you through their web browser. So I think it's like the first dipping the toe into the cross-platform world. And I imagine by doing it this way, Apple is able to scrape a lot of data and find out what kind of devices are using it and what resources they need and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's probably a quite clever way for them to make sure that when they do finally release a proper cross-platform FaceTime / iMessage app, that it'll be as good as it possibly can be. So yeah, it's basically just going to work just like Zoom, really. A couple of the other features which are in there, which I didn't really bother making slides for because they're quite small, is you have a new spatial audio feature, where whenever someone's talking, if you've got spatial audio compatible speakers or headphones, and I think the M1 iMacs have spatial audio speakers, the audio will actually sound like it's coming from whoever's talking on the screen. It'll be directed as if you can hear it directly coming out of the screen from their face, which is a bit spooky, but cool too. So yeah, they're really going in hard with FaceTime. And yeah, that's all of that, and I'm going to keep saying it, that's all true for Mac OS as well. So all the features are kind of simultaneous. Live text. So this one's really cool, and I've been using this one a lot actually. So this feature, I'll talk about more, but you can use it in Photos, in the Camera app, and you can use it across the web as well, and anywhere you see text in an image. And basically what happens is when you go to take a photograph, for example, so you can see the one in the center, which is taking a photograph of the real estate sign, it automatically asks if you want to capture any of the text, and you swipe your finger across the text and you can either copy it and paste it into a document, or you can act on it. So for example, this one, there's a telephone number and it asks if you want to call it or send it a message. It's really, really cool. I was in a gallery yesterday and I was able to just literally copy and paste all of the stuff off the wall straight into a document and have everything that was on there, rather than taking lots of blurry images and having a somewhat rubbish collection of pictures that you're probably never going to look at again. You can actually get stuff off the real world and into a note or any other app that you want, really. So it works really well, and sometimes I'm a bit puzzled as to how well it works, because it even works with handwriting pretty well, and kind of highly cursive text it still manages to detect. And oddly, it's easier to select text using that than it is just in a standard document. I still find it really difficult to select text in any of the Apple apps on an iPhone, but for some reason it works better using live text. So that's a pretty awesome new feature, and that's using a lot of AI technology to figure out what it's seeing. So you can do it just directly in photos that are in your albums, in your Photos app, but you can also do it with a live camera, which is how I've been using it mostly. So you literally just open your camera and point it at any kind of text that you see in the world, and a little button will pop up and you just tap on it, and then it lets you just highlight and do whatever you want with the text. You can also use the camera to insert the text into any other app or any other thing that you're using online. So it's going to be really useful, I think, for a lot of people. And you can also use it to translate. So you can see here someone's translating some handwritten text. You're ready to know what that is. Oh, hand up. Is that James?
I just wanted to say that I'm delighted to see this coming, because I have to take a picture of a nameplate and then I have to either hand type in the picture after I blow it up large enough to see it, or I have to make a PDF and see if I can OCR that.
All right.
This takes an awful lot of steps out of maintaining any piece of equipment, whether it's your your iPhone or a radio, or if there is such a thing anymore, or your garden tractor or car, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've already been using it for like copying the text off of the back of ingredients lists on food and all sorts of things like that, really. And I think it's probably going to probably be the nail in the coffin for a lot of expensive OCR software out there. So OCR is optical character recognition. This kind of it is OCR, but it also uses machine learning. So it's not just recognizing the text itself, it's also looking at it in context, and it's using a lot of artificial intelligence to figure out the what you're saying. So for example, if you see the word chicharradito, which is highlighted here, if it was just optical character recognition, it would only see exactly what it sees. But because here it sees the rest of the sentence, if it's not quite visible enough, it can just try and guess what the word should be anyway. So it's much deeper than OCR. It's a much more intelligent way of doing things. And I think it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. I think Apple, for about 3 years, they've been slowly drip feeding people the idea of AI and machine learning and what it is and what it's capable of. And I think they're very conscious of giving it to people in small doses in the hope that eventually people will get very used to the idea. But I'm sure most computing within a year or two will be mostly automatic like this. It won't be about doing anything manually anymore. So yeah, so you'll be able to live translate from text. So if you see a sign when you're on your holidays, you can just hold up your camera. The technology has been around for a while, but it was more OCR, like I said. So for example, Google Translate, you can hold up the Google Translate app to a sign and it will translate it for you. But I've definitely seen some big leaps with the way that Apple are doing things, and they're doing things a bit more intelligently. So another thing, and I haven't actually been able to demo this myself because it doesn't seem to be working yet in the beta for me, and that's visual lookup. So a bit like the live text, the visual lookup will actually just identify whatever you're looking at. So if you're on the web and you see a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, or here you can see there's a painting, a little symbol will appear. So you can see there's a little pop-up window that's just there. You tap on it and then it will open up some information below that it gets from the internet. And so you can pretty much do this anywhere on your phone, anywhere where there's an image. Basically Siri will be working in the background to try and figure out what you're looking at. So you can see here there's a painting. Someone's taken a picture of a cover of a book and it's come up with the links to where you can get that book from and information on that book. Someone's taken a picture of a plant and it's identified the species of that plant and showing them information on the species of that plant. It's identified a landmark and given you maps linked to that landmark and web pages and also the Wikipedia entry. And then you can see here it's even identified a breed of dog, so you can find out more about that specific breed. So I think this is just the start, and I think it's probably going to expand a lot over the next year or two. But at the moment, yeah, it's kind of restricted to art, landmarks, nature, books, and animals, really. But it's just literally tapping. So whenever you're in something which is compatible, one of these bubbles will pop up and then give you some extra information, which is pretty cool, I think. So shared with you is another thing which is across the board. It's again in macOS and iOS, and it's basically, I think for a long time, people have had the issue of figuring out where stuff is on their devices. And when somebody's sent you a message 2 years ago with an attachment, it's just impossible to go back that far in messages or anywhere really. So what Apple have done is they've made it so almost all of the apps now, and in messages especially, they will have a section called shared with you. So you'll be able to see everything that anybody's ever sent you separately from having to actually find the original sources. So for example, here you've got links, images, and other things which are shared in iMessages. They will now appear in a dedicated section called shared with you. So you can just go straight to the links or straight to the various bits and bobs that people have sent you. So you don't actually have to kind of keep diving in and out. So for here, for example, you can see on the left picture, you have somebody's messages app, and on the right picture, they're in their photos app, and it's showing you the photos which were sent in the messages app. So those photos aren't actually in the photo library, but there's a dedicated section in the photo library saying these are photos that have been shared to you from various apps and various locations. So it's kind of trying to consolidate all of the stuff that gets spread all over the place, because we all have tons of files, and most of us, I think, have multiple locations that we save stuff to. So it's pretty cool. And these are the apps which will support it to begin with. So Safari will show you a list of all the links that anybody's ever sent you. Apple News will show you any news articles that people have forwarded. Apple Music will show a special section with any playlists that anyone's ever sent you or songs. Podcasts, same, will show a list of podcasts that people have forwarded. And Apple TV for any videos that you might have forwarded to friends, and photos, of course, photos and videos. But I'm sure, I think they'll probably open it up to third-party apps too. So eventually, every app on Mac OS and iOS will have a shared to you section where you'll be able to always see everything that's been shared with you. Any questions on that one?
Brad, there's a question, from Frank Salvatini, who just says, does it require Wi-Fi for it to work?
What, they shared with you?
I guess so, yes.
No, it's always going to be there on your apps, various apps.
Thank you.
Let me open the chat. Actually, I didn't open the chat window. So what's really annoying is when you use Keynote, the cursor disappears.
Yep.
So I can't see where my cursor is. Live text is XR or later. Yes, it is, because it uses machine learning. Oh, and I can see some other questions here that I totally ignored. So John's was, do you know whether FaceTime links will be enduring links to send once used many? I'm not sure about that, actually. I think the FaceTime links, you can set expiries for them, and I think they are scheduled links. So I don't think they will be permanent links that you can just leave somewhere. So I think they have to be scheduled calls. And then, of course, once the time lapses, then I think it will probably be gone. What phones do live text? Oh yeah, someone's answered that. XR phones and above. What about us poor people with older generations? Well,
buy a new phone, Chris.
Buy a new phone is the answer. Just work a tiny bit harder. Live text, why not Russian, Greek? I don't know. Why not Tuvalu? Why not? there's a lot of languages, and I guess they have to start with the biggest ones first, right? And then they slowly eventually work their way around to things. I mean, now they're only just now adding things like Persian and languages like that to the other apps that have been out for a few years. So of course it's always based on who the biggest amounts of users are. I know Apple are very aggressively targeting Chinese, Japanese, Korean markets at the moment, so they're kind of pushing those Asian languages ahead more than some of the other European languages. And I guess it's just volumes, isn't it? Will that use space on iCloud? No, so the stuff that's shared to you, it's not any different to the way things are shared with you now. It's just a way of collating what has been shared with you. So whatever format people share it you with, whether they've sent you a link via messages or an email or whatever, it's just a space in each app that shows you all the things relative to the app which have been shared to you. So it doesn't use any, it's still stored on your phone if it's a link or a video or whatever. It's not using iCloud to do that. It is using iCloud to synchronize it though. So of course, when you open up photos on any device, it will then show the links from wherever you've accessed them. But it isn't storing anything in iCloud unless you are storing it yourself in iCloud. But yeah, it doesn't use any space there. So I'm going to try and keep this chat window open because I didn't see any of those questions.
Simon, you have a hand raised.
Oh, hello, Simon.
Yeah, I think the shared with you items is in effect like a smart folder in the same way as you can.
Exactly.
It's not a real thing. It's a smart link to all the things that have been shared.
Just a view, right?
It's like an item in the Finder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's just a quick, easy way of seeing stuff that you've already got. It's not anything new, really. It's just seeing stuff in one place rather than having to remember where something was and going and finding it and finding the specific message. You can just see all the things that have been shared with you all at once. But I think that would be very useful. I lose stuff all the time. So going through this quite quickly, actually. I'm a bit worried I might not have enough content. So iCloud Plus was something that they really spent about 3 minutes talking about because I don't think it's really ready yet. So iCloud Plus is like a premium version of iCloud. It's not an extra payment. So it's for anyone that's already paying extra. So if anyone's paying like the extra storage tiers, which I think start at 99p, they will all have iCloud Plus as standard. And three main things that I think are most interesting are the private relay, hide my email, and custom domain names, which was quite a hidden one, which someone discovered in a bit of code, and it was confirmed by Apple. So yeah, so iCloud, of course, is where we keep everything that's really important and where we sync everything. And what they're trying to do is make it a much more private and more kind of secure place for you to rely on. So one of the first new features is private relay. So I think they very purposefully didn't use the word VPN, but it is a VPN. So if anyone's ever used a VPN, a virtual private network basically takes all of the traffic of what you're doing online and it forces it through a third place, a third server. So whatever end is kind of looking at what you're doing can't see what you're up to and where you're doing it and how you're doing it and what device you're doing it on. And it's just basically a way of hiding everything that you do from not just corporations and the government or whatever, but also from advertisers and all of the kind of silly stuff that tracks what you're doing across the web. So I mean, understandably, a lot of big marketing companies are having kittens at the idea of this being default for most people, because it will mean so many things across the internet won't work anymore. Lots of marketing methods won't work anymore. Lots of adverts won't work anymore. So it's going to cause big problems, I think, for people like Facebook and Instagram, who rely on adverts targeting people with specific bits of data. If you already have a VPN, will you have to ditch it in favor of private relay? No, you can still use a VPN. The advantage of a VPN, though, is one of the side benefits of having a private VPN is you can watch content from other countries. So you can specify what country you want to appear to be in, and say, for example, you want to watch Canadian Netflix, you could make your computer appear to be in Canada, and then when you access Netflix, you'll get the Canadian catalogue rather than the British one. And some catalogues, like the US, obviously are much bigger than the UK. Here's a little trick. It's technically legal, but it's very, once you've figured it out, it's pretty crazy. You can actually use a VPN, and if you set your VPN to appear to be in India, you can sign up for any one of the subscription services, and they're all less than £1 per month. So for example, I use YouTube a lot, and the adverts are getting crazy. You have like 5-6 adverts per video. So if you use a VPN and you set your country to India, and you go to the YouTube Premium sign-up page, as you just put in, as long as you put in an Indian postcode, and it doesn't check any of your address details, so you just find any old Indian postcode. So I chose HSBC in Mumbai and I put their postcode in and then the rest of my address, and I pay, I think, 89p per month instead of 12.99 for YouTube Premium. And you can do the same for Netflix. I think Netflix is £1.50 per month, and Google Drive is £4 per year for huge amounts of storage. And because of course Indian economy couldn't possibly afford £13 a month for just no adverts on YouTube. And so it's not illegal. It's not illegal. How do they know that you're not actually in India? Of course, there's no guarantee that they might not find out at some point down the line and then just cancel your subscription. But then you just have to resubscribe if you want at the standard one. But what I do every now and then is I just watch a few YouTube videos appearing from India, just so it looks like I am occasionally in India. But yeah, it sounds like it should be illegal, but it's not illegal. It's just international pricing policies. So you'll be surprised, there's so many websites where the pricing is completely different if you're appearing to come from a poorer country, which seems a bit kind of
if it's good enough for Amazon, Brad, it's good enough for the rest.
That's true, that's true. So yeah, I think it even works with flights. So if you look at flights and you're coming from an Indian IP address, the prices will be way lower than they are. Even if you're getting a flight from, I don't know, Scotland to, I don't know, Paris, it would still be a lower price thing. I mean, that's one of the things that this private relay is going to probably destroy for people, is it will prevent most websites from knowing who and where you are. So they won't be able to have this varied pricing anymore. They'd have to come up with another way of determining where someone is and this kind of thing. So it's a big deal, and it's causing a lot of fear in a lot of the industries that use IP addresses to figure out where people are and what they're doing. So yeah, private relay is just an on or off toggle. There's no settings. It's just an on-off option in iCloud. I have found that some things didn't work when I was using it, but I think that's just because it's not fully online yet. What's remarkable is it doesn't actually slow down your browsing at all. I found, whereas some VPNs, because you're going via another server somewhere, it can slow down your browsing and things. But the private relay doesn't seem to make any difference to the speed whatsoever. And actually, in some instances, it can be faster, believe it or not. So that's a big deal. So that will come to anyone who's paying for iCloud in any way, shape, or form. So it doesn't matter which tier you're on, you'll get that as long as it's not the free tier. So that's private relay. So hide my email. Hide my email's already been around in a way. So you probably noticed in the last couple of years that when you sign up to use an app now, you used to always be able to sign into an app with Google or Facebook or other platforms, or Twitter, for example. And then a couple of years ago, Apple allowed you to sign in with your Apple ID to some things. And so they made it a rule that if an app developer has a signing in method, then they have to include Apple as an option to sign in, if it's not just their email and password. So with that kind of sign in with Apple, you had the option to not use your real email address, and it would create a fake email address, so you could cancel it at any time. But what this hide my email option does is it allows you to use your fake email addresses anywhere you want, not just signing up for an app in the App Store, but you can actually, anywhere across the web, you can create limitless amounts of fake email addresses and not ever have to give anyone your actual email address. And then you'll be able to delete the email address if you start getting loads of spam, or there's some stalker that won't leave you alone or something like that. You can completely change the email address, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so that's coming again for iCloud Plus. We've got a question here. I know an insurance company that won't let you sign into the website if your VPN is running. They say they need to know where you are because of security. Will this practice spread? Yeah, I imagine it will. I think well, I don't think the Apple private relay will probably be detected as a VPN, because it is working in a slightly different way. So it's analogous to a VPN, but it isn't a VPN. And I think that's why Apple are very keen to not call it that. Because I think it will still show the country, but I don't think it will show your geographic location. And you can't change which country it appears to be from. So I don't think that will be a problem for most things. But yeah, lots of secure websites do detect if you've got a VPN. But the VPN that I use, for example, 9 times out of 10, if you just reload from a different server, it works. So it's just hit and miss, and they just basically, these websites will blacklist a long list of IP addresses, and if they match, they say, sorry, you can't access with your VPN turned on. And usually if you just hit refresh and choose a different VPN, it usually eventually works. I think BBC iPlayer was one of the first to try and start blocking VPNs, but it worked for a while, but there's so many millions of VPN servers going on that they can't possibly block them all. and know which IP addresses are which. So it's cat and mouse basically between the VPNs and the websites. But yeah, I guess an insurance company has a vested interest in making sure that you're in the country that you say you are, for your business or whatever. But yeah, I imagine it should be separate from that. Yeah. Any other questions on those three things, actually? No? Okay, we'll just type them in if you come up with anything. Oh, yeah. Oh, you're welcome to. Yes, this is a nice little treat. So they didn't say it in the keynote, but in further documents after, they're finally going to allow people to use their own domain names for their email addresses. So the way it will work is you won't be able to buy a domain name through Apple, so you still have to buy a domain name from somewhere else, like GoDaddy, for example. And so for those of you that don't know what a domain name is, the ending of your email address, iCloud.com, is a domain name. So the domain name is iCloud. So you could potentially buy anything you like. You could buy your family name if it's available. So you could have johnsmith.com. And so you could have john@johnsmith.com, and you could assign that to your iCloud account. And then the way it will work is it will allow you to share that domain name with anyone that's linked to your iCloud family. So if you have iCloud family set up, all of the other members of your family can also use that domain name ending. So you could have all the different people, mum, dad, Billy, Sally, at whatever.com. I imagine, again, this is probably paving the way for hopefully a business version of iCloud at some point, which would be brilliant because I hate using Gmail for my business, but I have to because it's the only real choice. So yeah, so that's coming. So you'll basically just be able to point your domain name to your iCloud account, and then it will be available to all of the members of your iCloud family. Any questions on that one? Because not a lot of people don't really get what domain names are. And nope, all good. Okay. So these are the devices that are compatible with iOS 15, and I find it.
One question: Do you know when that feature is going to be available?
Oh, which feature? Sorry, the let me go back.
The domain name.
It should be as soon as iCloud Plus is launched. So that'll be obviously when iOS 15 is officially out, which is usually the very end of September.
Okay, so it won't be available in any of the betas, you don't think?
No. I think it's probably be September. I mean, it's already available. I think to the the hide my email and the private relay is already available to beta testers, but I haven't seen any way of seeing the domain name stuff yet. So I'm assuming.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, so these are all the devices that are available, and what's really cool is it goes back as far as iPhone 6S, which is quite a few years now, and it seems every year the list of phones is much bigger that it goes back as far as. So there are some features, as someone pointed out earlier, like the XR is the oldest one that can use some of the machine learning stuff. So there will be some features which won't work. I wasn't able to find a sheet which kind of neatly lists all the things that do and don't work on each device.
Brad.
But yep.
I put a link in the chat for a Tidbits article which explains exactly what features are available on what phones.
Hang on, let me see if I can't find my cursor. You think by now Zoom would have realized that when you share an app, your cursor disappears.
It's called The Real System Requirements for Apple's 2021 Operating Systems.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Simon, I'm not seeing this, am I? Oh, it's further up. I've got it.
Yeah. It was a little while ago.
Okay, cool.
Brad, while we're having a conversational moment, Alan Wright of Exeter says, "Are Apple pandering to hackers?"
Oh, in what way?
I don't know. Alan, would you care to unmute and enlighten us?
Well, by the fact that you can pretend to be anywhere in the world, any country.
Oh, no, you can't do that with Private Relay. You can do that with a VPN, which is not an Apple product. So a VPN you can buy a subscription to. That allows you to pretend where you are in the world. but the Apple Private Relay won't let you change your location. It just hides all of your data.
So that's better than a VPN then, in that
Well,
sense.
not necessarily, because like the VPN, the ability to change your location is useful for you, not so much other people. It's useful for you to be able to access different countries' content. So hackers can't really, I mean, the point of a VPN is it actually makes your computer less hackable, not more hackable.
Right.
So all
Right.
of your data is going through private relays rather than going straight between you and a website. So it's basically just putting in lots of kind of like a maze between you and the end place that you're accessing. So when you use a VPN or private relay, it's actually going to be a lot more difficult for anyone to access your data, even the legitimate people that you're sending your data to, like websites and things. So yeah, if anything, you have to worry less about hackers. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, understood. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, there's actually, for the first year in a long time, there's not that much to talk about because almost everything that's new in Monterey I've already talked about because it's what's new in iOS. And I've probably said it every single year for the last 5 years that eventually there will be no difference between the two things, and we're getting close to that. So there's not really a huge amount to talk about with the new Mac OS, but there are a few things which are specific to Mac. So we'll go through those quickly now. So yeah, so basically this is me just saying there isn't a huge amount of slides to show you about Mac OS, because of course Apple's emphasis really is on iOS for most things, and most new features now, they're designed for iOS first, and then they kind of find their way onto the Mac, and it used to be the other way around. So eventually, yeah, they will be one and the same thing. Quick Notes is the first cool little feature. So Notes, of course, is a pretty useful app that people use to store a lot of their data and a lot of the things that they find around living their lives. And this new feature is also on iPad OS, but it's not on iPhones, not in such a simple way. But basically what happens is there's you can either create a keyboard shortcut or there's an active corner where you can pop up and quickly jot a note rather than having to open the Notes app and write a note and then close it again. It's a bit like the old days when you used to use stickies. I don't know if anyone remembers stickies. It's a little app that's still on your Mac actually, that allows you to create kind of little post-its. But the cool thing about these is that they're contextual, so they always remember where you pasted stuff from, and it's always linked. So say, for example, you were on a web page and you copy some content into a quick note. The next time you go back to that page, that quick note will pop up and say, this was here. So it's kind of, yeah, a really cool feature, which again uses artificial intelligence to try and figure out what you're trying to do. So you can put anything into a note. You can drag in files, you can drag in media, web links, and it's just a nice, easy way to kind of scrapbook the things that you do, I guess, in day-to-day life, rather than having to fully open the Notes app. And again, they're synchronized. So if you are using an iPad, it will synchronize across there. It will still show in the Notes section on your iPhone under a section called Quick Notes. So it does keep them separate from the rest of your notes. But yeah, I think that's a nice, cool little productivity feature. The next one is, this one's very cool. So this was unexpected. Universal control is the ability to use one keyboard and mouse between all of your devices at the same time. And I can't for the life of me figure out how they've done it, because it almost looked like magic when they did it on stage. And basically your devices talk to each other and they just know where they are in relation to each other. So if you have your iPad next to your iMac screen and you're using a keyboard and mouse, you just literally move your mouse from one screen to the other and it detects it and it starts working on the other device. And it's kind of crazy. I can't figure out how, but that's what it does. And so you can literally have your phone, your iPad, your Mac and a laptop all open on the desk, and you can seamlessly move your mouse between all of the screens without having to disconnect and reconnect Bluetooth on all of those different devices. So it's pretty cool. I really don't have a clue how how they do it, but it works. So let me just have a look. And you can also drag and drop stuff. So you can drag and drop a file from one device to another just by using the mouse and the screens, rather than having to use AirDrop or drag something. It's kind of one of those like wow things. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, and I imagine a lot of complicated stuff is going on behind the scenes. I haven't been able to find any detail about whether it needs to be specific network features or Bluetooth or anything like that yet. There's not that much detail on it yet. But yeah, if you do use lots of different devices and different Macs and things, it's can the iPad Pencil and iPad draw in a Mac app? That's a good question. I can't imagine why not. They do show an Apple Pencil on all of their graphics and things, but they don't specifically say about using an Apple Pencil. You also have Sidecar. So Sidecar already does let you use the Apple Pencil with the compatible Mac. Does the mouse need to be Bluetooth, or can it be hardwired? That's another thing I don't know. And they haven't specified whether it has to be an Apple mouse or not. I can't imagine why it would need to, because I think it's the Mac OS which is probably doing the hard work. So my suspicion is you probably could use a hardwired mouse, because you can use a hardwired mouse with an iPad even if you want to. And I use my iPad with a mouse, with a trackpad and keyboard case, and it's so cool. If you haven't tried it, you need to try it. I think it's even nicer than using a laptop, actually. It's a much nicer cursor, and it seems to be a bit more proactive. But yeah, universal control, that's coming, and it's meant to be, there's no setup, there's no settings, there's no on or off. You just literally, when you move your mouse and there's another device nearby, if you move your mouse in the direction of that device, it will then appear on that device. So it's what Apple like to do, really. They try and make things as kind of foolproof as possible. There is such a thing as foolproof. No setup required. So you can see here, it's literally just moved from one screen to another. It's kind of mad. Any questions on that one? That's a quite complicated feature, I guess. What mouse do you use, please? I don't know. I mean, they haven't specified. They've just said a mouse or trackpad. So my assumption is it's anything really, because like I said, I think it's the Mac OS which is doing it and iOS which is doing it in the background. So I don't think it really matters what device is used to move the pointer. Yeah, it's handoff. Yeah, exactly, Simon. It's like handoff on steroids. I've never really got into handoff. It's never really seemed to work for me as well as it's supposed to. And it always seems a little bit more vague. Whereas I think this is a very deliberate use of handoff, which I think will be cool. It does have to be initiated from the Mac. Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. That Mac OS is kind of acting as the hub. Yes, they do need to be near each other. So I think it is using Bluetooth for proximity and things. I don't think it works like remotely from another area. But yeah, it would probably be within Bluetooth range, which is usually about 30, 40 feet if you don't have loads of stuff in the way. So this one's very cool. So finally, you're actually able to use your Mac as a place to send stuff to that you're watching on another device. So say, for example, you're watching a YouTube video on your iPhone, you can now use your Mac as a place to send the content to watch and hear on the screen. Because of course, for most people, their Mac screen is probably one of the best screens they have in their house. So having an extra screen, and now the new iMacs have such amazing speakers as well, especially when you consider how thin they are, and the spatial audio, which is really cool and works with Netflix. Now you'll be able to just sit on your sofa or sit in your bedroom and queue up something on your phone and then just hand it off to AirPlay to play on your Mac. So your Mac can basically be an AirPlay speaker or an AirPlay screen, like your TV in your living room. So for a lot of people, I imagine students as well will really love this feature, because a lot of people will have one device acting as their television and their speaker and whatever. And it will even let you use your AirPlay as a kind of multi-room speaker, so you can simultaneously play music to all your rooms and use your iMac as one of those AirPlay speakers, a bit like a Sonos system. So that will be very, very cool as well. It's one of those features where you just wonder why it hasn't been the case all along anyway. I know there was some older iMacs that had a visual in port, and then they got rid of that a long time ago, because a lot of people tried to use their iMacs as a display for gaming consoles and that kind of thing. And you could do it, you could attach a PlayStation, for example, to it, but you had to use lots of different bits of hardware to do it, and it was never very good. There was always a lag. So this will be using AirPlay 2, so it should be pretty seamless. So yeah, that'll be nice. And then shortcuts. So the shortcuts app has been on the phones for a few years now. So shortcuts basically allows you to kind of automate a lot of the processes that you do on your devices. And I think a lot of people now have only just started to properly explore it. I think a lot of people have seen it on their phone and just thought, that's too complicated, I'm not interested. But actually you can do some really, really crazy powerful things with shortcuts, and it's probably, I think, Mike, it would probably be a good thing to do a whole session on with someone once, perhaps, because it's one of those things which looks so kind of dry and not that interesting, but as soon as you start exploring it, you realize you can do all kinds of insane things that you could never really do without it. So finally it's coming to the Mac. So on the Mac, you've had for a very long time, you've had the Automator, which is an app for kind of creating workflows and things, but that still requires quite a lot of know-how, I guess, and you need to understand kind of linguistic methodologies, whereas shortcuts is a much simpler way of automating things and connecting things together. So I've just saved, they've got a few examples that they use. So for example, you can use a shortcut on your Mac to automatically open two apps and then split them into two dual screen app, rather than having to press 5 or 6 different buttons to do that. You can have it so you can automatically send an image to group chat, drag and drop an image onto the shortcut, and it will immediately send it to your group. So you can create shortcuts that do these actions. And another one is, this one's quite a cool one actually. When I saw it, I thought that's a quite interesting one. If I can get my cursor to move, because I can't see it. So you can organize your downloads, create subfolders within your downloads folder, and separate them into images, audio, and other file types, which would be really cool. So rather than just having stuff randomly download into your downloads folder, you can create a shortcut that every time something's downloaded into your download folder, it will check what type of file it is and file it in the appropriate folder in the downloads folder. So for all of those kind of OCD people out there, you can you can really like get deep into it. And a few people that I've shown shortcuts, at first they were really kind of hesitant and wondered like if this is a bit too geeky for them, but as soon as people start using them, they kind of get addicted to finding ways of using shortcuts to save time. And so for example, I have a shortcut that activates when I get home with my phone. I have a shortcut which activates all of the smart technology in my home, so my lights come on, my hot water boils, and my TV turns on, and my music plays like an ambient music playlist when I arrive home, just by me arriving home. I don't have to say anything, I don't have to do anything. So you can really go crazy with shortcuts, and it's always seemed very odd to me that it didn't exist on the Mac for such a long time, but I think they realized that there also are a lot of people who are very attached to Automator, so they wanted Automator to last as long as possible. Automator, I think, still is going to exist once this is out as well, so I don't think they're getting rid of Automator just yet, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that have used it to do quite complicated, sophisticated things, which they would be quite upset by if they did disappear. AirTags is the last thing that I'm going to talk about. So AirTags came out, they were like the world's worst surprise. That people have been seeing them on the horizon for about 3 years, because Apple filed documents with the various regulatory bodies in America years ago, and designs leaked. But they are the newest category of products that Apple have released in recent times. and they are brilliant. I've bought lots of them. And I'll just talk to you about them quickly now. So an AirTag is basically a little button. It's about the size of a small badge, if you like. And it's basically just a plastic shell with a battery and a metal back that you screw on and off. So you can change the battery really easy, and it just uses a coin type battery. And basically it allows you to attach it to anything you like, really, and locate it. So there's been other products like it over the years. There's Tile was the biggest competitor to Apple. And they were not happy when Apple when Apple released AirTags, and so much so that they're starting to sue Apple, saying that Apple have a monopoly now because it's built into their devices, which I think sounds like sour grapes to me. But yes, so AirTags are basically, I think the primary use that most people are using them for is their keys. So you can attach them to a key ring and add it to your keys. But I have them on my keys, I have them in my bag, I have one in my wallet because it fits in the coin section of my wallet, and I have one on my Oyster card wallet as well. And so all of those devices I have, all of those things that they're attached to, I can track where they are. So they will appear in the Find My app. So the Find My app was changed to Find My. It used to be Find My iPhone, but now it's used to find all kinds of things. It will just list all of your stuff, basically. And there's lots of videos on YouTube of people using them to track parcels even. So there are people that have put them in a parcel and watched it go on its journey through the world to see where it actually goes and whether it matches what the delivery company says. So the way it works is a little bit different to some of the other tags. Oh, that's my Uncle Tony saying Lindsay has one on her dog in case it runs off. That's a really good idea, actually. I'm surprised they didn't actually say that when they should have used that as an example. And oh, Anne said, what kind of case are you using? Are you talking about for the AirTag? I'll show you in a second. You lost an AirTag already because the case was open on both sides. The sound is not as loud as the Tile I've been using. Yes, okay, I'll get to that. But yes, so you attach them to all your things and they appear in Find My. The way that Tiles worked by proximity, and so you can only find them if you're close enough to get a signal to reach the tile that was attached to your things, or if another person, say for example you had a Tile keychain and you left your keys on a park bench, and another person that happened to also be using Tile walked past, then it would update its location to you that way. But as soon as you walked further away from a Tile tag, your connection's lost and you couldn't find it. But what's different with the Apple tags, AirTags, is you are basically using every single Apple device out there. Every single iPhone and iPad can locate your AirTag. So if you left a wallet on a park bench and 30-40 people walk past it with an iPhone, it will be constantly pinging that location in like a relay race back to you. So it's not like GPS, so it's not tracking it constantly. It's based on how many people go past the tag with their Apple devices. But because there are so many millions of Apple devices in the world, it's almost as good as GPS tracking, and you can get really accurate kind of location data. For me, I'm just useless in my own flat. So I constantly lose my keys in my sofa, my wallet in a bag somewhere. And yes, it makes a sound when you look for it, and it isn't the loudest sound in the world, that's true. And the Tile products, they do have a couple of Tiles which are a bit louder than the AirTag ones, and they make a big point of that. But when I've lost something, I just have to make sure that everything is silent. I turn off anything that's making a noise, and I just have to really keep my ears peeled. And I have managed to find stuff quite easily. But the big difference between Tile and AirTag is, even if you can't hear it, the location detection thing is so accurate. It's really, really accurate. And you basically, as you can see with this picture, you hold your phone and you walk around and it will point you exactly into where it is, and even height as well as forwards, backwards, left, right. It also determines how high up or low you need to go. So it's very, very cool. And most of the time when we lose stuff, it is usually around somewhere that we are. What's cool is if somebody finds one of your things with an AirTag attached to it, they just need to hold their phone to it, whether it's a Android or a iPhone, it doesn't matter. And if they hold their phone to it, it will pop up with some information of who to contact. So you can set in the settings when you set them up to have a phone number or an email address that's displayed to whoever finds the tag, basically. So it means hopefully you'll be able to recover most of your things. But yeah, people have used them for all sorts of things. Although Apple don't really advise it, people have used them for bikes and tracking stuff. And one of the things that they were very keen to say is they want to massively prevent people from just tracking people with an AirTag. So of course you could quite easily pop an AirTag in someone's pocket and track where they're going and who they're seeing and what they're doing. So Apple have made it so that if somebody else's AirTag that's not registered to your phone is near your phone for too long, so over a couple of minutes, it will pop up on your phone and saying there's an AirTag nearby that's been tracking you. So it kind of does a really good job of making sure that you can't get up to any kind of mischief and track people you shouldn't be tracking. Let me just see, there's a few questions here. Oh yes, I saw that. So YouTuber sends an AirTag to Tim Cook and Apple returns it with a letter. Trying their luck. Remote locations. Yeah, so some people have, you'd be surprised in a remote location. I read a story about someone that lost their wallet in Alaska. And just because iPhones are so ubiquitous and so everywhere, even in a remote location, like somewhere like Alaska, you will eventually get somebody somewhere walk by with an iPhone. I mean, maybe not the middle of the Sahara Desert or something, but yeah, in most places which are near any kind of civilization, there'll be plenty of people walking around with iPhones. The battery life is about a year, I think. So you might not get it back straight away. But yeah, it seems to work really, really well. So yeah, but yeah, if you drop it in a lake, you might be out of luck. It does have some basic weather protection, but I don't think it will last very long, fully submerged for very long. You can also get it engraved. Hey, it's not really engraved. They call it engraved. It's just like some kind of etching thing on the top. I just have my initials BC on top, but you can have either emoji or up to 3 letters, I think, engraved on each one. They are £29 each, or it's £99 for a pack of 4, which saves you a bit of money, actually. And you can split the pack. So if there's 2 of you in the household, then you can both separate them. They're not connected in any way to each other, so you can give them out to other people or whatever you need to do. So I think most people will just have them on their keys and maybe in their wallet. And a 4-pack will be good for a couple to use. There is one caveat though: don't buy this. So this is one of the key rings that Apple sells, and it's £399 for the tiniest piece of leather. Of course it's Hermes, so that's why it's £399. But I forbid anyone for paying that much money. Yeah, they do. I think there was a new one which was £799, which was a luggage tag. £799 for a luggage tag is just insane. Insane. So is there any questions about AirTag? Any more questions? Because that kind of is the end of everything.
Yeah, I have a question. It's Mitch.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I have 4 AirTags and I only have one set up right now on my keys. But if I set up one on my wife's keys,
yeah,
or throw one in her car, and I put it on my phone, then she's going to get an alert that I'm tracking her around. So what I really need to do is set that up on her phone. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it's absolutely, yeah. So
Okay.
the AirTags themselves, when you get them, aren't connected to anything or anyone or each other. They're entirely separate, even when you buy them in a pack of 4. And so you have to set them up with the phone that the person's going to have, because if you set it up with your phone, but you give the tag to your wife, it's going to constantly alert her that a stranger's tag is with her, basically, to try and prevent people from tracking other people. So it does need to be set up with the person's phone directly. Yeah.
Okay, I had one more thing that I don't know if you can get to now, but when you were going over the extensions in Safari, you mentioned 2 that were your favorites. I went into extensions and went into the app area. I could not find those.
Let's have a look. I'll quickly show you. Let me find. It's in the App Store. App Store. So are you looking on your phone, or are you looking on?
I was looking on the iPad. I looked on the phone too.
They're not available yet. They're not available until iOS 15 comes out.
I'm on 15.
Oh, you're on the beta?
Yeah.
I haven't actually looked on my phone yet, because I don't even know if, because of course they rely on third-party developers, which might not have actually released many yet.
I mean, I have one. I have one that I'm using, but I couldn't find the couple that you particularly liked.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not even out yet, to be honest. Because they're third party.
Okay.
So yeah, there will be a section in the App Store specifically for extensions, but I think they would the Honey and the other ones I talked about were just the demos that Apple used. But because they're not made by Apple, it's up to the developers to decide when they actually release them.
That explains it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Brad, going back to your AirTag, what happens if the person who just walks past the bench where you've left your wallet is not honest? Is this device drawing his attention to that wallet?
No. So no, if somebody doesn't see the tag, then nothing will happen. It will still use people's phones. It will still use people's phones to tell you where the tag is. And it does that without alerting the person at all. So it just piggybacks off of other people's connections.
Okay.
And because everyone's using Apple and usually iCloud, in an encrypted way, it sends that location to you via Apple's servers. So nobody will be aware that they are actually relaying the location of your devices or your things that you're tracking. But if somebody sees an AirTag and picks it up, if they hold their phone near it, it will use NFC technology and it will just pop up and say, this was lost. Here's a number, if you've registered a number with it, or an email address. So for most people, they won't know about it. But if they do see an AirTag, then you can do it. One of the things which I find a little bit annoying at the moment is that if you have your phone in your pocket with your keys and the tag is near your phone, it constantly comes up with, you found an AirTag. It's like, no, it's my AirTag, thank you very much. But yeah, so I've used it at least 4 times since I've bought them and recovered stuff that I probably wouldn't have recovered before. So they really do work really well, and I probably made them sound more complicated than they are, but they are dead simple to use. You really don't need to figure anything out. It's just there. There were reports that Hermes AirTags cases were falling apart. Yeah, well, there's lots of reports about Hermes and various things, but I just don't understand why people would spend as much as a Mac Mini on a leather tag. It just, I mean, I have a copy of the Hermes one, which cost me £2.99 on eBay from China, and it looks identical, and it will probably fall apart just as quickly as the Hermes one. Paul's Skira, I think they're great. They really work. Some very minor issues. They're not intended for tracking stolen devices. They are and they aren't. I mean, they can track a stolen device, but of course they're not a tracker in the traditional sense. They're not a GPS connection, so it's not a constantly live feed. So, but police have used them to track down. A bike was recovered in East London and someone was arrested, and they are being used actively to track down stolen goods. That may not be what they're intended for, but that it works. So if it works, it works. The direction feature only works relatively close range. Yes, so the direction feature uses the ultra wideband chip that's in the newer phones. So yeah, iPhone 11 and later. And that is able to give you a bit more precise directions, but yeah, that only works in about, I think it's around 15 to 20 feet roughly.